the right hand of King Stephen, who is the saint and hero of the proud and ancient kingdom of Hungary.
For over 100 years, the preserved corpse of Julia Pastrana was put on display.
It's a creepy location, brimming with paranormal activity.
Whether it's depressing historical photos that shed new light on horrifying events we know all too well, or strange new pictures of the things we thought we knew everything about, pictures truly are worth 1,000 words. Ever since humans discovered painting, we've been capturing history by using pictures to depict our world, experiences, and emotions. However, some of these historical photos are more disturbing than others. Some historical photos show the world in a positive light and just seem like a regular picture you might take today, albeit in black and white. But beyond the surface of these historical photos lurks a dark and often disturbing story. From the horrors of war to the struggles of everyday life, these pictures capture some of the most disturbing moments in history. Our experts have scoured the history books, finding some of the most disturbing photos ever captured and sharing them here with you. Let's dive in and explore these disturbing historical photos you need to see. Blanc Monier. If this photo looks disturbing, the case behind it is far more uncanny and downright horrifying. Let's travel to France, all the way back in the 1870s, where we'll meet the Monier family. Blanche was the youngest daughter of a wealthy and prominent family and grew up surrounded by luxury. She frequented high society and was known for her beauty and charm. But despite her upbringing, Blanche never married and remained living with her mother, Madame Louise Monier, in the family's lavish home. Over time, Blanche's relationship with her mother grew strained as they fought over her romantic pursuits, with Blanche wanting to marry a man her mother disapproved of. She fell head over heels for a lower-class, older lawyer and refused to give up her love, even if it meant staying unmarried. Her mother, outraged by her defiance, imprisoned her in a small, dark room at the top of the house, where she remained for 25 years. During this time, the love of her life passed away, and yet Blanche refused to give in to her mother's wishes and be set free. It wasn't until an anonymous tip-off that the authorities discovered the truth. They found Blanche, barely alive and covered in her own waste, surrounded by rodents and scraps of rotting food. Both Blanche's mother and brother were arrested, with her mother dying 2 weeks into her prison sentence and her brother escaping punishment. Blanche never recovered from her ordeal and spent the rest of her life in a psychiatric hospital before passing away much later. This horrifying case of abuse and cruelty remains one of the most disturbing historical photos ever taken. If this isn't historical nightmare fuel, what is? The shadow. It looks like a puff of dust or black coal spread out on the steps of a regular building. If we travel back to the year it was created, though, behind this seemingly harmless image lies terror and devastation. Taken in Hiroshima, Japan in 1945, the picture depicts the aftermath of the atomic bomb explosion that took place on August 6th of that year. The blast and ensuing radiation killed or injured thousands of people, with the exact number still debated. This shadow, etched onto the steps of the Sumitomo Bank Company branch in the city, is the result of a person sitting on the steps, blocking the light and energy from blasting into the area. While many other shadows were destroyed by the subsequent blasts and heat, this particular one remained. Its existence serves as a haunting reminder of the lives lost and the irreversible damage caused by atomic bombs. It's a chilling image that will forever be ingrained in history, serving as a stark warning against the indiscriminate use of nuclear weapons. According to research, a shadow like this would be created in a split second when the light, heat, and energy from the explosion were absorbed by the surrounding area. The fact that this shadow belongs to a human being makes it all the more heartbreaking. A moment frozen in time, a haunting reminder of the horrors of war. Michael Rockefeller.
I appreciate this opportunity to express my will.
Let's travel to New York, where Nelson Rockefeller is mourning the loss of his son Michael. This case is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in American history and continues to captivate and disturb people to this day. In 1961, Michael Rockefeller, still a young man, disappeared during an expedition to Dutch New Guinea in search of traditional Asmat artworks for his father's estate. Despite a massive search and the rescue effort, no trace of Michael was ever found. However, in 2014, National Geographic reporter Carl Hoffman published his book Savage Harvest, which presents evidence that Michael may have been killed and eaten by the indigenous Asmat people. While some experts have questioned Hoffman's claims, the mystery surrounding Michael Rockefeller's disappearance and possible fate remains one of the most disturbing and intriguing in history. So although his official cause of death was listed as drowning, the unsettling images surrounding this case only begin to tell the story. Swim in.
Then manager James Brock told them to get off his private property.
Let's travel to the year 1964, when the civil rights movement was at its peak. In St. Augustine, Florida, a group of black activists organized a swim-in at a whites-only beach to protest segregation. In another photo, the young Mimi Jones can be seen bravely entering the water at a pool while being blocked and heckled by white segregationists. In this photo, the manager of the pool can be seen pouring corrosive chemicals into the pool, attempting to force the black activists out. This act of violence captures the intense racial tension and discrimination still present in the US during this era. However, these courageous acts of defiance and protests ultimately help push the Civil Rights Act of 1964 through Congress, a major moment in the fight for racial equality and justice in America. While these photos are seemingly history, they're a defining part of the fight for rights that still continues today. These brave individuals and their actions in the face of discrimination and violence are an inspiration and a reminder of the struggle for equality that has shaped our history. Wedding rings. Wedding rings are supposed to be signs of everlasting love and commitment, but in this photo, they represent a much more sinister fate. Taken in 1945, it shows just a small portion of the thousands of wedding rings that were taken from Holocaust victims before their untimely deaths. The Nazis would strip prisoners of their possessions, including jewelry, gold fillings, and even false teeth, to salvage the gold and other materials. This image serves as a stark reminder of the atrocities committed during the Holocaust and the unimaginable loss and suffering of those who were affected. It also highlights the inhumanity of the perpetrators and their disregard for human life and dignity. Countless marriages were broken, torn apart, and destroyed by the horrors of the Holocaust, making this image a haunting symbol of the darkest chapter in human history. These wedding rings may seem insignificant compared to the magnitude of the Holocaust, but they hold powerful and heartbreaking stories within their circular bands. It's a chilling reminder of the need to never forget the past and to continue striving for a better future. Genie Wy. This photo, taken in 1970, seems fairly normal. It's a picture of a young girl playing in the grass, seemingly having a good time. But behind this seemingly innocent image lies a harrowing story of abuse and neglect. The young girl in this photo is Genie Wy, also known as the feral child. She was kept prisoner and abused by her father, who kept her locked in a room and tied her to a children's toilet for most of her life. By the time she was rescued at age 13, she barely knew how to walk or speak. After her rescue, she was subjected to further abuse in institutional settings, and her abuse continued for many years. Dubbed the feral child, Genie's story shocked the world and brought attention to the horrors of child abuse. Unfortunately, seemingly nothing was done at the time of her release from her father's torture, and her whereabouts and condition today remain unknown. This disturbing historical photo serves as one of the last pieces of evidence of Genie Wy's existence, and while she hopefully survived and thrived after her trauma, we may never know for sure. Her story is a good way to remember that while many historical events can be positive and even heartwarming, there's a darker side to history as well. Breaker Boys. In 1911, child labor still made up a significant part of the workforce in the United States. Children were often employed in dangerous and backbreaking tasks, including working in coal mines. In this haunting photo from 1911, we see breaker boys, young boys who were employed to remove impurities from coal. Some of these boys could be as young as 12 years old, and their work was essential in the production of coal. But as you can see in this photo, these boys had to endure long hours of work, often sitting in the darkness of tunnels, breathing in foul and polluted air. Children were also employed as nippers, managing the flow of coal cars, a job that was equally dangerous and taxing. This photo serves as a reminder of the harsh realities of child labor, a practice that is thankfully now outlawed in most countries. Photographer Louis Hine who took this photo, described the terrifying conditions in a way that's enough to give you chills. He sat in absolute darkness, save for his little oil lamp and the lamps of the passers-by, breathing air that is far from fresh air, fouled by smoking oil lamps and loaded with moisture. This horrifying description shouldn't be forgotten, and neither should the disturbing reality that this photo captures. Julia Pastrana.
For over 100 years, the preserved corpse of Julia Pastrana was put on display for the thrill-seeking eyes of the public.
Let's travel to Mexico and meet a young woman named Julia Pastrana. Born in 1834, she suffered from a condition known as hypertrichosis, causing an excess of hair to grow all over her body. This became her main attraction when she joined a freak show that toured the world, earning her the title of the ugliest woman in the world. Despite her physical appearance, Pastrana had a beautiful voice and was known for her friendly and intelligent personality. In 1859, she married her manager Theodore Lent and became pregnant shortly after. Tragically, both her child and she perished soon after. Lent, not content with exploiting her in life, had Pastrana's body embalmed and put on display with her son. The mummified pair became popular exhibits for about a century before being stolen from their resting place. Pastrana's body was recovered, and thanks to the efforts of artist Laura Anderson Barbata and the governor of Sinaloa, she was finally laid to rest in her home country in 2013. Despite this, the tragic photos taken of her embalmed body are a horrifying way of considering how humans can exploit others for their own gain. Pastrana might have finally been laid to rest, but her legacy remains a chilling reminder of our dark past. Island of the Dolls.
A creepy location brimming with paranormal activity known as the Island of Dolls.
There are many photos of historical events that have long since been lost to time, but some history is still playing out today. That's very much the case with the Island of the Dolls. It was uncovered back in 1950 when Julian Santana Barrera, a Mexican hermit, found the drowned body of a little girl floating in the water. Struck with grief and probably convinced the girl's spirit still lingered, he hung a doll from a nearby tree as a memorial. Over time, he came to believe that the spirit of the girl was in the doll, and in an effort to appease her, began hanging more dolls all over the island. Eventually, over 1,500 dolls were strewn across the Island of the Dolls, with many visitors bringing dolls of their own to contribute to the collection. Whether or not you believe in the supernatural, this island and its disturbing history are sure to send chills down your spine. It's even creepier that Julian Santana Barrera was later found drowned in the same spot where the girl was discovered. Today, the island remains a popular tourist attraction, with the dolls still hanging from trees, decaying and appearing more eerie by the day. While it remains a tourist attraction, there have also been many unexplained occurrences and happenings that have left paranormal researchers confused. Stephen's hand. There are many horrifying artifacts from our past that are enough to make anyone sick to the stomach, but one particularly gruesome story revolves around the hand of Saint Stephen. In the 11th century, Stephen was the first Christian king of Hungary, and after his death, his body was exhumed, and his right hand was found to be fully intact. This was seen as a sign of his holiness and led to him being canonized and declared a saint. His hand was kept as a relic and became a symbol of Hungarian Catholicism. However, this horrifying historical photo is the famous picture of St. Stephen's hand, which is displayed in a gold and jeweled case at St. Stephen's Basilica in Budapest. The hand, also known as the Holy Right, is said to have healing powers and is still revered by believers to this day. While it may be a sacred artifact for some, for others, this photo is a disturbing reminder of the sometimes morbid and macabre practices of people throughout history. After all, keeping the hand of a dead guy just hanging around in your home or even museum doesn't seem to be the first thing you would want to do. But for centuries, St. Stephen's hand has been seen as a symbol of faith and devotion, even if its origin is a bit unsettling. Logging. In this bizarre and unsettling photo, it might seem at first glance like the tree is alive and trying to consume the man who lies trapped underneath it. In reality, this is a classic example of the extreme dangers faced by loggers in the early 20th century. In Oregon, logging was a massive industry, with the Pacific Northwest's vast redwood and fir forests providing lumber on a regional, national, and international scale. However, the work was far from easy, and loggers faced numerous deadly hazards every day. The terrain was often often treacherous, the weather unforgiving, and living conditions were less than ideal, with dirt and disease constantly present. Workers also had to contend with the possibility of a tree limb falling or a tree splitting at any moment, which could result in serious injury or even death. And while the men in this photo seem happy enough, the harsh reality of the nature of logging still remains. Today, logging is largely achieved through the use of large machinery and is much safer than it was a century ago, making this historical photo a significant reminder of the risks and sacrifices made by early loggers. Pioneers' defense. This photo is an ominous and disturbing sight without the context. An army of children donning gas masks, standing in formation. However, this image was taken in 1937 in the Soviet Union during a military preparation drill for the Young Pioneers, a youth organization similar to the Boy Scouts. During this time in Soviet history, the threat of war and violence was ever present, and leaders like Joseph Stalin ruled the country with an iron fist. The Young Pioneers were taught military skills and discipline in preparation for potential conflicts, instilling fear and paranoia in these young minds. This photo serves as a reminder of the sacrifices and traumas that the Soviet people endured under oppressive regimes, and serves as a disturbing piece of history that should not be forgotten. These gas masks were donned moments before the photo as they prepared for potential dangers and unknown futures, highlighting the dark reality of what it meant to be a young member of society during this time. The Pioneers' Defense is a haunting historical photo that captures the fear and uncertainty that permeated society during this dark chapter in Soviet history. While the context of the picture might not be as horrifying as some on this list, the underlying theme of forced militarization of children and the atrocities committed under oppressive regimes make this an image that could truly put someone into shock. Children for sale. This image might not be the hauntingly disturbing pictures you're used to until you see the sign in the corner. Simply reading "For Children for Sale" is enough to send chills down your spine. The desperation and poverty that led to this picture being taken is heartbreaking. In 1948, the Chalifou family was facing eviction from their apartment in Chicago, and in an attempt to gain some desperately needed money, they made the difficult decision to sell their children. The children, Lana, Ray, Milton, and Sue Ellen, were all between the ages of 2 and 6 at the time. The family claimed that the mother was paid to pose for the picture, but the children were in fact sold to different families within 2 years. Tragically, they were known to have been physically and emotionally abused by their new families. While selling their children might have been a good way to pay for rent, it ended up being one of the most horrible disasters to ever strike a loving family. Poverty has always been the enemy of families, not only of the Chalifou, but of many people in many different places around the world. Photos like these may be difficult for us to look at, but they remind us of the struggles people face every day just to survive, even within their own homes. Analisa Michelle. Let's travel to Germany, where we find a case of what many believe to be demonic possession. Analisa Michelle's story began in the late 1960s when she was just 16 years old. She started blacking out at school, followed by experiencing strange behaviors like convulsing, hallucinations, and even consuming her own urine. Her devout Catholic family believed that she was possessed by the devil and sought the help of the church. Over the next 2 years, Analisa underwent a total of 67 exorcisms, but none of them seemed to improve her condition. Tragically, Analisa passed away in 1976 at the young age of 23, weighing only 68 pounds. Her story has since been turned into a book and film titled The Exorcism of Emily Rose, bringing attention to the controversial practice of exorcisms and the disturbing circumstances that may have led to Analisa's death. While some continue to believe that Analisa was truly possessed by demons, others argue that she may have simply suffered from a severe mental illness and was a victim of religious and medical neglect. Regardless, the chilling last photos of Analisa Michelle are some of the most horrifying pictures of all time and seem haunted in more ways than one. Robert Overaker. Let's travel to Niagara Falls, moments before Robert Overaker's tragic death. On October 1st, 1995, Overaker attempted to cross the falls on a jet ski wearing a parachute on his back. His goal? To raise awareness for the homeless. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned, and his parachute failed to open. Overaker plummeted 180 feet into the river below the falls. "It's like hitting cement," said Niagara Parks police officer Thomas Dietenbeck when asked about Overaker's tragic death. "I don't really think people respect the power of the falls." The death of Robert Overaker serves as a shocking reminder of the power and danger of nature. While Overaker was trying to raise awareness for a good cause, his actions were too risky and ended up causing his death, a shocking and horrifying moment captured in this disturbing historical photo. While it's good to be passionate about the homeless, dying while trying to help does no one any good. It serves as a cautionary tale for anyone who attempts to take on nature's power. Some things are just too dangerous, and this photo is a disturbing reminder of that fact.